was about to tell my husband I'd inherited $35 million when the notary stopped me. Ma'am, our records show your divorce was finalized 2 months ago. I froze for 5 seconds. Then I made my move. There were no divorce papers in my memory. Not one signature I could place. My husband handled our finances, the accounts, the filings, the paperwork that came with running a business together. I handled everything else, the parts of our life that felt like they mattered more. So when the notary sat there reading my name off a finalized decree, I genuinely thought she had the wrong file. Ma'am, our records show your divorce was finalized 2 months ago. I actually laughed, and told her there had to be some mix-up. She didn't laugh back. She turned her monitor toward me instead, and there it was. My name, my husband's name, a case number, a date I recognized immediately because it was the same week my father was admitted to the ICU. I remembered that week in pieces. Hospital coffee that tasted like nothing. My husband showing up at the hospital with a folder of papers, telling me the accountant needed signatures before end of quarter. Something about a business line of credit we'd been planning for months. I signed everywhere he pointed. I didn't read a single page. I was running on maybe 4 hours of sleep across 3 days, and he knew that better than anyone because he was the one holding my hand through it. I sat in the notary's office and stared at my own signature under a caption that read, "Petitioner, not us, him, filing against me." I told her I needed a minute. She said, "Take your time," and stepped out. I didn't cry, which surprised me. I just sat there doing the math on how long 2 months was and how many nights in those 2 months I had made him dinner. Split screen time on the couch, asked him how his day went. I drove home and didn't say a word, not because I was calm, but because some old instinct told me to gather information before I let him know I had any. I called my sister, who's been a paralegal for 11 years. She pulled the public filing before I'd even finished explaining. The address listed on the decree wasn't ours. It was a condo 20 minutes across town, in a building I'd never heard him mention. I looked it up that night while he was still at the office, found the building's leasing page, then a name search, then a social media account with the privacy settings half off. A woman, younger. Photos of her and my husband at a restaurant I recognized because we used to go there for our anniversary. In one photo, dated 3 weeks earlier, he had his hand on her stomach, and the caption had a small blue heart. I didn't confront him that night either. Instead, I called the attorney handling my father's estate because something in me needed to understand what this meant before I understood what it felt like. She explained that my father, ever the careful one, had structured the inheritance with a clause that excluded any spouse if the marriage ended before the transfer date. My husband's own paperwork, filed in secret, had already locked him out of every dollar he might have been counting on. He had beaten himself. He just didn't know it yet. When I finally asked him about the condo, he didn't deny a thing. He said I'd been distant since the miscarriages. Said he needed someone who could give him what I couldn't. He said it so plainly, like he'd rehearsed the sentence in the mirror. I asked him when he filed. He named the date without hesitation. 2 weeks before my father passed. Back when I was sleeping in a hospital chair and he was bringing me coffee I thought was kindness. I asked him if he loved her. He said yes, like that settled something. Like loving someone else was supposed to explain away a divorce he'd filed in total secrecy while my father lay dying. I didn't say anything for a moment. I was too busy running the timeline in my head. The condo, the paperwork, all of it lined up with such precision against the worst week of my life. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I called the notary back the next morning and asked her to walk me through exactly what my signature on record now legally meant, now that it was finalized and filed and real. She was kind about it, methodical, and by the end of the call, I understood precisely where I stood, which, as it turned out, was in a much better position than my husband had gambled on.